There was one rule in our house that outranked all the others. Don't go in the basement. Not don't run with scissors. Not be home before dark. Not even don't talk to strangers. Just the basement. The door sat at the end of the hallway past the kitchen, painted the same off-white as the walls, with a brass knob that never turned. A deadbolt sat above it. Old, scratched, always locked. When I was little, I thought monsters lived down there. When I got older, I thought maybe that would have been easier. Storage, my mom always said. Dangerous stuff, my dad added. Nails, tools, chemicals. You could get hurt. So I never asked twice. Except, I always knew they were lying. Because sometimes late at night I heard things. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just movement. A soft thud. A slow creak. Once, the faint scrape of something against the floor. When I told my mom, she didn't laugh. She didn't reassure me either. She just said, "Pipes. Old houses make noise," and turned the TV up louder. My dad installed a lock when I was 7. Before that, it had just been stuck. After that, it was forbidden. That's when I started paying attention. I grew up in that house. Same creaky stairs. Same drafty windows. Same locked basement door at the end of the hall, like a period at the end of every childhood sentence. Friends weren't allowed over much. Sleepovers? Never. Birthday parties happened at parks, bowling alleys, anywhere that wasn't our house. If someone had to come inside to use the bathroom, grab a jacket, my mom hovered. Always between them and the hallway. I thought she was just strict. Now I know she was scared. They died 6 months apart.
Car accident.
Black ice. A guardrail that gave way too easily. I was 26. Too old to feel like an orphan. Too young to feel ready to be alone in the world. Cleaning out their house felt like dismantling a museum exhibit of my own life. Every drawer held a version of me I barely remembered. Report cards. Crayon drawings. A chipped mug that said "World's okayest mom." But the hallway still ended the same way. With that door. The key was on my dad's old keyring, tucked in the back of a kitchen drawer under rubber bands and expired coupons. I held it in my palm for a long time before trying it. I told myself it was just storage. I told myself they were overprotective. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Then I unlocked the door. The smell hit first. Not rot. Not mold. Dust. Old fabric. Stale air that hadn't moved in years. The light switch was just inside the door. I flipped it. Nothing. Of course. I used my phone flashlight and stepped down the narrow wooden stairs. They creaked under my weight like they were tattling. Halfway down, I almost turned back, because the air felt wrong. Not dangerous, just heavy, like the room was holding its breath. The basement was bigger than I expected. Concrete walls, low ceiling, exposed beams, and furniture. Not boxes, not tools. Furniture. An old couch against one wall. A small wooden table with 2 chairs. A bookshelf lined with children's books, worn, yellowed, but neatly arranged. I moved closer, heart thudding. The books weren't mine. I didn't recognize a single one. Picture books. Early readers. A dog-eared copy of Charlotte's Web. My throat went dry. Why would my parents keep a secret children's library in the basement? Then I saw the drawings. Taped to the wall beside the bookshelf. Crayon scribbles. Stick figures. A house with 3 windows and smoke curling from the chimney. In one drawing, there were 4 people. 2 tall. 2 small. One of the small ones had long hair. I didn't. No. I whispered to the empty room. My voice sounded swallowed. I kept walking. There was a rug on the floor. Faded, soft-looking, out of place on bare concrete. A basket of stuffed animals sat beside the couch. A pink rabbit with one eye missing stared up at me. I had a blue bear growing up. I never had a rabbit. I turned slowly in a circle. This wasn't storage. This wasn't random. This was a room. A living room. For a child. My pulse pounded in my ears as I moved toward the far corner. That's where I saw the second door. Small. Narrow. Painted pale yellow. Child-sized. The knob was lower than a normal door. Like it had been made for small hands. My chest tightened. I didn't want to open it. I needed to. The door creaked softly as it swung inward. Inside was a bedroom. Tiny one. Single bed with a floral blanket tucked tight. A nightstand with a plastic lamp shaped like a star. Glow-in-the-dark stickers still clung to the ceiling above the pillow. Moons, stars, a crooked planet. A dresser stood against the wall. On top of it sat a framed photo. I stepped closer. My knees nearly gave out. It was my parents. Younger. Sitting on that very couch out in the basement. Smiling. And between them a little girl. She had dark hair in two messy braids and a gap-toothed grin. She looked about 6. I had never seen her before in my life. But she looked like me. I don't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was on the edge of that tiny bed, the mattress sagging under my weight, the air too thin to breathe properly. My parents had another child. They had another child. And they had kept her. Here? My brain rejected it immediately. No, this wasn't that. There were no locks on the inside of the room. No chance. No signs of force. This wasn't a prison. It was a hiding place. But from what? And where was she now? The dresser drawers were filled with clothes. Small jeans. T-shirts with faded cartoon characters. Socks rolled into neat little balls. I pressed my face into one of the shirts and inhaled. Nothing. Just time. The closet held a coat too small for any adult. Pink with a broken zipper. Shoes lined up on the floor beneath it. I backed out of the room slowly, like I might wake something if I moved too fast. On the bookshelf outside, tucked between the books, I noticed a stack of folders. Manila envelopes, edges curled. I pulled the top one out. Newspaper clippings spilled into my hands. Local girl missing. Search continues for 7-year-old. Police suspect abduction. The photo beneath the headline showed a little girl with dark braids and a gap-toothed smile. The same girl from the framed picture. My vision blurred. Her name was Lily Harper. She disappeared 32 years ago. 3 years before I was born. I sank onto the couch, papers shaking in my grip. My parents had a missing child in their basement. A child who wasn't me. A child who had vanished decades ago. But the room didn't look like it had been abandoned for 30 years. The books weren't that old. The stuffed animals were from the early 2000s. The drawings looked newer than that. This room had been used. Recently, my mind scrambled for a timeline. I was born 26 years ago. If Lily disappeared 32 years ago, she would have been 13 when I was born. Too old for these toys. Too old for glow-in-the-dark stars. Unless there was another child. Another girl. Living down here. After Lily. After the headlines faded. After the world stopped looking. I stumbled back upstairs and threw up in the kitchen sink. The house felt different now. Smaller. Like the walls were leaning in to hear what I'd discovered. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the clippings spread out in front of me. Phone in hand. Googling names I never thought I'd need to know. Lily Harper was never found. Her parents died years later, still insisting she was alive. There were theories. Sightings. Nothing confirmed. Until now. Except, there was no body. No blood. No evidence of violence. Just a hidden room. Built to keep a child safe. Safe. The word looped in my head. What if they didn't take her? What if they hid her? From who? The articles mentioned something else. A suspect. Lily's uncle. Arrested twice for assault. Questioned. Never charged. I stared at his mugshot on my screen. Cold eyes. Tight smile. A man who looked like he knew how to make people disappear without leaving marks. A memory surfaced. I was 8. I'd woken up in the middle of the night thirsty and gone to the kitchen. My parents weren't in their room. I heard whispering. Crying. From the hallway. I'd peeked out and seen my mom sitting on the floor by the basement door, back against it, like she was guarding it. My dad knelt beside her, holding her hand. "It's okay," he'd said. "She's safe." At the time, I thought they meant me. The next morning, I went back down. I needed more. Answers. Proof. Anything. Behind the bookshelf, I found a small safe bolted to the wall. The key was taped to the back of a book. Inside were documents. fake birth certificates, medical records under different names, photos, so many photos, my parents, the girl, growing older, different haircuts, missing teeth replaced with braces, school pictures taken against a makeshift backdrop in that basement room. She lived here for years, hidden, protected, loved. The last photo was dated 12 years ago. She looked about 17, standing in the backyard at night, hood pulled low, a suitcase at her feet. My mom was hugging her, face buried in the girl's shoulder. My dad stood watch near the fence, eyes scanning the dark. On the back of the photo, in my mom's handwriting, "She gets to live now." I didn't go to the police. Not yet, because the more I looked, the more they were terrified, and they'd spent years protecting a child the world had forgotten, or maybe never really tried hard enough to find. Lily hadn't been imprisoned. She'd been hidden from someone who would have hurt her far worse. There was one more thing in the safe. A letter, addressed to me, in my mom's handwriting. I opened it with shaking fingers. "If you're reading this, we're gone. And you finally opened the basement. We wanted to tell you so many times. But the less you knew, the safer you were." Lily came to us when she was small and scared and running from something no child should ever face. We couldn't take her to the police. The system failed her once already. So we kept her safe until she was old enough to choose her own life. You were never in danger. You were never second best. We just carried a secret that wasn't ours to share. If you ever find her, tell her we never stopped loving her. I folded the letter with tears dripping onto the ink. All those years I thought the basement held something horrible. I was right. It held the proof that the world is sometimes too broken to trust, and that my parents chose to fight that the only way they knew how, by turning our basement into a sanctuary and locking the door, not to keep someone in, but to keep the darkness out.